Okay, let me turn my camera on there so you can put a face to a name. So if you see this guy homeless begging off the highway, so I always tell my students, please give generously. But my name is John Meredith, and I am your instructor for this class. Wanted to thank you all for joining us today. And our focus today is going to be on writing queries specifically for security. So it's cloud security monitoring and analytics. And as before, we'll typically, cover some material, go over some examples, and then we'll give you an hour to take the exam. Unlike the last couple of sessions that we've had, which tend to run a little long on the lecture, this one I expect to run pretty much on time. So 2 hours of lecture and labs, and then 1 hour of 1 hour for the test. But regardless, if we do run late, as you all know, those of you who were with me yesterday and the day before, know that we will gladly, we'll be here while you take the exam. Our goal is to help you. So, and if you don't want to take the exam right now, you don't have to, but you'll find there's an incentive here for that reason. So, okay. Again, I've been with Sumo a little over 2 years. And I live in Bedford, New Hampshire. That's where I'm teaching the class from. What you're seeing here is not a Zoom background photograph. This is actually my office. This is what happens when your kids grow up and they leave the house. You can convert their bedrooms into an office if you want to, but so anyway, I'm also being helped here and assisted by Odell Gordon. Odell, you want to say hi?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome again on this journey. Good luck and learn as much as you can from John.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the video sharing here, at least my streaming, and save a little bandwidth here, and we're going to get going. One little thing I do need to mention to you, just as an aside, and that is my kitchen is getting remodeled, and today is the electrical rough. So if you hear little background noises from time to time, it's not a big deal, but I am right above the kitchen. So, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. So here we go. What's our game plan? We're going to talk a little bit about a security demo. I'm going to walk you through that security demo. You will not need to log in at that time because you don't have access to the security demo anyway, but I'll walk you through it and kind of talk about what we're going to, cover in this class type thing. And then we're going to do a series of hands-on labs. So we're going to write queries specifically dealing with security. And so we are going to create a starter security operations center, that's a SOC, dashboard with various filters. We're going to add parameters and filters in there. So we're going to do a couple labs. I don't know if we get through 5 before we take a break or whatever, but there are 8 labs that we are going to go through. And then at the end of that, there's the certification exam. Now, good news, the certification exam pretty much covers the labs. So if you understand the labs and understand the mechanics of those labs, you'll understand the exam. There are a couple of other germane questions that I'll try to make sure I cover during my lecture, but this is probably one of the easier exams, I think, that we have. So just wanted to make it a little easier for you. As I mentioned, you'll have a chance at the end of this to do the certification exam, and we encourage you to take the certification exam. In fact, not only are we going to encourage it, we're going to reward you for it. So if you take the certification exam and pass it, if you go in and do a screen capture of your certificate and you email it to us, email it to training-promotions@sumologic.com, we will send you a $15 Uber Eats voucher. Now, I need to warn Bill and other Sumos that are in this class that for Sumo employees, you're not eligible for this. But obviously our customers and our partners are. So I would encourage you to feel free, like I said, take the exam, pass it. And once you pass it, you can send an email to training-promotions@sumologic.com. And like I said, we'll send you an Uber Eats voucher. One thing, would like you to make sure you include your job title. So if your job title is not part of your email signature, we like to keep track of that sort of thing. So who we got certified. So yeah, Bill's just mentioned in there. Emmanuel says, can I send one email with all 3 certs? You certainly can, Emmanuel, no problem. So yeah, it's fine. And somebody asks, do we need to send all 3 certs? No, all you need to do is each cert is worth a $15 Uber Eats voucher. So if you've been following along for the last 3 days, you can get 3 times 15, $45 worth of Uber Eats vouchers. Also, for my friends and students in India, just to be fair here, we are currently working with Ziggy and finishing up the paperwork on a Ziggy account, so we can provide you the equivalent of Uber Eats with Ziggy out in India, but that is not quite finished up yet. So Just want you to be aware of that. So that's the promotion. Now, again, most of us have seen this slide before if you've been in the class yesterday or the day before, right? So our focus in this class is really going to be on building a dashboard for security intelligence. Where are my users logging in from? And what kind of traffic am I seeing on my firewalls, my ports and stuff like that? What are the browsers and devices and stuff are these? What operating systems, right? So for example, when I was an IT manager, everybody in my company used Windows machines. So if somebody comes in from a Mac, that might make me suspicious to what the heck's going on. So again, we're going to build these queries and build out a dashboard that, quite frankly, if you have CloudTrail, you can take home with you. And then, of course, there's other things we can do as far as Sumo logic. We can deal with operational intelligence. Are my environments up? Are they down? My business intelligence. Again, what are people buying? What are people interested in? If I ran a special promotion, am I seeing a return from that? And then, of course, global intelligence. We can look at a very high level across these other three areas to see perhaps some activity going on. Maybe, because at AWS Guard Duty is pointing out that there's an attack going on somewhere in the world, we can see perhaps the areas that might be affected. And then, of course, your data in this slide. Your data could be on various applications, could be on various microservices, could be using software as a service applications, just like Zoom, right? You could be using cloud systems, cloud environments. We don't care where your data comes from, quite frankly. Your logs and your metrics and stuff you can bring into Sumo logic, and then you can get some intelligence and stuff out of them. As far as Sumo logic is concerned, we are born in the cloud, raised in the cloud. We support multi-tenancy, we are scalable, we are elastic. You know, as those of you in yesterday's class found out, we have things like log reduce, log compare, outlier, various advanced analytics and machine learning functions, as well as a bunch of APIs, application programming interfaces, which allow you to programmatically do things inside of Sumo logic, create users, install collectors, a whole bunch of different things, manage your users, et cetera, et cetera. As those of you who've heard us before, this right here, our security and monitoring, is kind of our crown jewel because we have worked and maintained our FedRAMP moderate authorization. We are CSA star compliant. We are PCI compliant, SOC 2 compliant. So we've had outside agencies audit and maintain our compliance with regards to these areas. So these are things that you're dealing with a company that has also been evaluated, checked out, and that we are in fact certified in those various areas. Okay. So Raul asked a question here. When any malicious actor covering the track by deleting logs, does this appear as an alert? I'm trying to give you could set one up for that. The trick is really what you want to do is in our product, there's two privileges. There's one that says I can view collectors. There's one that says I can manage collectors. The only people you want to give the ability to manage collectors, aka delete the collectors, is the people who you want to be able to delete them, who you trust. Okay, so you can set up an alert on this, yes, but and by the way, it's very easy. You look for missing data. So Raul, yeah, to answer your question is we can do that, but I'd rather be more proactive and set the permissions accordingly. And again, we talk about that, I'm sorry to say, Raul, in the admin class. So, but yes, you can set up an alert on that. Okay, so good question. And then finally down here, your various roles. And again, I assume for those of you attending this class, your role is probably something to do with security or some sort of analyst. So that's the big picture here. And again, when we think in terms of security here at Sumo Logic, there are three tiers, if you will, of security intelligence solutions. There is the usual audit and compliance, right? You as a company need to ensure that you are maintaining compliance for your
tweezers. I've grabbed them. No,
see somebody's
I don't
got.
think I have any. Oh, hold on. You want to hold on a second? I can check real quick.
I'm just going to mute them. Don't mind that. So anyway, so you want to check and make sure that we, again, you've got compliance. Now we've got a bunch of built-in apps that you can use that you can install that will probably take care of your compliance issues to ensure that you're maintaining your compliance. and that sort of thing. We've got various compliance apps for everything, Azure, AWS, various applications. And then the second focus is, if you don't have an app, you can obviously write your own queries. And that's going to be the focus of this class. This class is we're going to write some security queries and basically build out these little dashboard panels. So those of you who were with us yesterday or the day before know that each of these little panels represents a query, and we can put them all together in a dashboard. And that's what we're going to do. So that's going to be the focus of this class. Now, additionally, we also have another product called our Cloud SIM. SIM standing for Security Information and Event Management. And we have classes on our Cloud SIM. There are two classes. There's the Cloud SIM Fundamentals, and there's the Cloud SIM Advanced. Cloud SIM Administration. And this is a product that we have that basically ingests various records and stuff like that, and it correlates them so that you can see where your threats are. And it provides you basically a bunch of insights so that you can see, rather than having to go through a bunch of records or view a bunch of logs or anything like that, it automatically correlates this stuff so that you can focus on what's really important based on various rules that we have, based on the MITRE ATT&CK framework, or you can also write your own custom rules. So like I said, that's another conversation. We will not be getting into that today. Like I said, that's for the Cloud SIM Fundamentals, the Cloud SIM Administration class. But that's the security lineup that we have. And it's a pretty powerful security lineup. So like I said, if I go back and look at security analytics, we're going to focus on doing some searches, taking those searches, creating visualizations, making dashboards out of them. And then we'll also look at some of the advanced analytics that we can look at with regards to security. Some of you in the Search Mastery class yesterday, you saw some of our advanced analytics: log reduce, log compare, outlier, various functions and stuff that we have. Okay. Tom, you asked a question. This is not yet applicable to folks in the government cloud version, right? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, people can run these queries right now, so it is applicable. If I understand you right.
I meant the SIM, the Cloud SIM.
Okay. Okay. So let me be completely transparent. The Cloud SIM is available for folks in the government, I believe, but it is not FedRAMP moderate certified yet. Our analytics and the things we're going to go over today are. So does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, so the part of what we're doing is dashboards for that Cloud SIM, right?
What we're doing today is dashboards for that. We're doing is dashboards today for security.
Oh, okay. So in a more general way than not specific to the Cloud SIM.
Correct. We're not touching the Cloud SIM today.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So this is, and that's all SOC 2. I'm sorry, that's all FedRAMP moderate authorized and everything else. So that is, like I said, that is all certified. And if you're a government person, you can start building those today. So yes. So let me get into my demo here. Let me stop my slides. I'm going to go out here to my Sumo Logic environment. I'm going to log in. Again, you guys don't need to follow me because you don't have access to the demo environment anyway. Okay. So I'm going to switch over here to my demo environment, and we're just going to show you a little bit about security and the sort of things that we can do here. Okay. Let me go ahead and close all these up. Said close all these up. Thought I said close all tabs. Sorry about that. And here in my library. So again, those of you familiar with Sumo Logic, this is my navigation pane. I can open it up by clicking on the hamburger menu, and we'll see that in just a few minutes. Then here in a folder called SIM Demo, you'll see that we've got SIM Security Demo 3.0, and we have built dashboards for AWS environments, Azure environments, Google Cloud Platform environments. I'm going to grab the AWS dashboard here. And so these are the types of queries that we can write. And again, we're not restricted to just these, but we want you to see the sort of things that we can build and what we're going to build in our class today. So here I can see where my folks are logging in from, right? Here's a nice map, and I can see where my folks are logging in from. Now, if you're a worldwide organization, this probably makes sense. If you're not a worldwide organization, then maybe we want to be a little suspicious here of where folks are logging in from. But maybe somebody's on vacation and they're working, who knows? So, but you can see where folks are logging in from. Over here, I have a query that takes advantage of, we have an IP address, and we take some IP addresses and we send them to CrowdStrike. Now, for those of you not familiar, CrowdStrike takes an IP address or a domain name or an email address, and it tells you if there's any known threats associated with that. Now, maybe you have CrowdStrike, and if you do, it costs a pretty penny. But through Sumo Logic, we have a relationship with CrowdStrike, and we can use Sumo Logic queries to query CrowdStrike through our product with no additional cost and get information about known threats, known issues, and things like that. So we have a subscription as CrowdStrike that you can take advantage of through our tool. This third panel over here, suspicious login distances. I have a user who has logged in the last 3 hours, and they've logged in from 2 different IP addresses. One is in the United States, one is in Egypt. So that logically should raise a little bells in your head saying, wait, that's impossible travel, right? That we don't have transporter technology. They can't get from the United States to Egypt within 3 hours. Now, maybe they VPN'd in and the VPN redirected them to Egypt. I don't know, but normally I would think this is suspicious and I would want to investigate this. So we can create what we call a land speed violation, and you'll actually see this exercise in our labs. So this is the sort of thing that you and I and others can create. Again, I want to see my data volume across my S3 bucket. And of course, I can go in here and I can use these selectors to turn on or turn off various filters to enable or disable and focus on what I want to see. I can look at my AWS guard duty logs. What is my guard duty log telling me? I can look at my VPC flow data. So here is an example of an outlier. That's what we talked about yesterday. And I'm looking at my data on this line, and my cloud behind it, that brown cloud, if you will, is the number of standard deviations off of that, my data points. And then if I see a point that's not in the cloud, I see this pink triangle. So that indicates to me I've got some sort of a statistic outlier. And that's something that I may want to look into. So all of a sudden I've got, flow data, and then all of a sudden I don't, and that sort of thing. I can look at my firewall traffic. Again, I can look at bytes received, or I can look at bytes sent. Again, my bytes sent is much smaller. At most, it's 2.6 megs. My bytes received is obviously more significant, almost 39 megabytes. Down here, I can see maybe what's going on with my anti-malware, right? My anti-malware, how many records have I cleaned? Have I deleted? Have I, quarantined? That sort of thing. And of course, I could write individual queries to see what it's quarantined and who's getting these, right? By the way, also in our Cloud SIM product, we also can see if we've got malicious files and that sort of thing. So integrity monitoring, again, we can see threats and stuff, whether they're high, medium, or low. And again, we can select and filter and all that fun stuff here. By the way, when I say filter, these selectors here they're filtering my visualization, but it's not the kind of filter that we're going to talk about in our dashboard. In our dashboard, we have the ability to create these types of filters, and that's the filters I'm talking about, those parameters and filters. And we'll create those in this class. So that's the security demo overview. Are there any questions about what we're going to do? Well, then let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, as those of you who have been in class for earlier this week know, what we want you to do is we want you to fire up Google Chrome or Firefox. And on the URL, I'd like you to go to service.sumologic.com. That's service.sumologic.com. And when you go there, it's going to ask you for an email and a password. Now, before you type in the email and the password, what we want you to do is pick a 3-digit number. And you can type that in the chat box. So for those of you with us the last couple of days, you already played with a number, you can continue to use that number. Okay. So pick a 3-digit number, type it in the chat box. That way we know what number you're going to use. And then if you would log in as training plus analyst with that 3-digit number. So replace these pound signs, hashtags, whatever, with your 3-digit number at sumologic.com. And then the password is February 2022 exclamation mark. Now, just so you know, that password changes every month. Okay. So on the first Monday of the month, we change it. And I don't know what the March password is yet, but if in March you want to play with our training environment, you're welcome to do so. I am going to put my contact information here so that when we get around to March and the password changes, you can reach out and you can ask me for that new password. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is, like I said, I want you, excuse me, let me stop here for a second. Let me go over here for a moment. Let me switch out. By the way, if you ever need to log out, you open up this navigation panel on the left, you click on where your name is or your account, and then there's a sign out option. So I'm going to sign out of that. Oops, excuse me. I probably shouldn't have done that. I should have probably switched it first. Give me a second. Sorry, guys. Should have switched it and then signed out. So there, let me switch it to the training environment. So now I'm in the training environment. Now I can sign out so that I see what you see. Okay. Crap. Helps if I grab the right environment here and don't mess around. I'm a little challenged today. All right. So now when I sign out, you can log in with whatever number that you want. Okay. Again, training plus analyst with whatever number that you want. Just for fun, since I'm up here in New Hampshire, I'm going to grab 603, which is the area code of New Hampshire. And again, that password is February 2022 exclamation mark. And I'm sure many of you know that Google Chrome has this little button that lets me see what that password is. So I don't make a typo, and then I can sign in here. Okay. And I want you all to sign in. Now, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to sign out of that 603 account, and I'm going to log in with my account because I have administrative privileges in case any of you have problems with your account. If you're having problems logging in, please let myself or Odell know. Okay. Yep, Matt, you're absolutely correct. I will share that with everybody, so that's fine. Matt points out that the passwords are available to everybody at this URL, and I'm going to show you where that URL is. Actually, no, yeah, that's okay. Actually, Matt, I'm going to show you. I'm showing you a better URL. So, but anyway, let's talk a little bit about this interface. Let's talk a little bit about where resources are. Let's talk about what Matt just asked about where passwords are. So, as far as the passwords go, and as far as our recordings of this class and our slides for this class and all that stuff, again, if you're in the Sumo Logic environment, and if you click on the Home tab, this Home tab right here, and on this Home tab right here, there's the Home page, there's a Learn tab, there's a Certification tab. If you click on the Certification tab, and if you click on Get Certified, this is where we will go for the certification example. We'll do that later, and I want to do it a little differently. So, but here under Becoming a Sumo Logic Expert, right here, this is where we keep the passwords. So this is what I recommend as a URL. The URL you provided, Matt, was for partner training, and not everybody has access to partner training. So let me add this to here. Okay, for the passwords. And I realize I mistyped that. While I am here, let me go back for a second by hitting the back button where it says recorded live training. If you click on this, you can see any of our classes. And in our class, we're in this cloud security monitoring and analytics Cert Jam. We can go here. And of course, we register for this class. It takes about a second, you register. And then here we have a recording of this class. Happens to be me teaching the class. You also have a link to the slides for this class and as well as the labs for this class. They're PDFs for those. So I will take that and I will copy that and I will put that in the chat box. Okay. Oh, Matt, good point. Matt points out that when you guys log in to Sumo Logic with these training accounts, you don't have access to some of these pages. You don't have access to the self-paced training. And there's a reason for that. You don't have access to this. If you log in your company's Sumo Logic environment and you go in here to get training, get certification and stuff, you will see that. So the reason we do that is we want to keep track of who's in here. So we want you to log in from your company's environment. So you're logged in with your first and last name. We know that, John Meredith, Fred Flintstone, Wilma Flintstone, whatever, took the training. We keep track of that stuff. If it's training analyst 903, we can't tie that to a person. So that's why it's disabled on these accounts. So my apologies. If you log in to your company's Sumo Logic environment and do this, you'll be fine. So thank you, Matt, for pointing that out. Okay. All right. So that is where you can get various resources. I'll come back to this, get certified and getting certification later. But again, we want you to log in with your account on your environment so that you personally get credit for certification, not training analysts, whatever crazy number. Okay. All right. So here's my first question. I'd like you all to raise your hand if you're logged in. And more importantly, if you're not logged in, I would appreciate it if you would let us know in the chat if you're having problems so we can help you. Because everything we're going to do from here on out is going to be about hands-on in the lab, in the environment. So again, if you're logged in, please raise your hand. If you're having problems, please let us know. Okay. Raul asks, can we download the recorded training? I'm not sure if there's an option in there to download it. So I think you can, but we'll see. And so Matt's in, Gosvetti's in. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Feel free to correct me. Viral's not in yet. Okay.
Hey, John, quick question.
Yes, sir.
So I assume if somebody else was to use my training number, that they will be able to delete any of the dashboards or queries that I have in my personal folder?
Correct. So if somebody else logs in with that account number that you used in previous classes, they can delete or do whatever you want. That's correct. Yep. Now, in a real world situation, right? You all are logging into your company's environments with their credentials. Nobody should have the same credentials in a company's environment, but this is a public facing environment that we use for training over and over and over again. So it just makes sense that yes, people can log in with that same number that you may have used, and they have the rights to be able to delete what you've created. So thanks for asking. All right. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Hey, can you repeat, how do I get like 3-digit number on login page? This is Viral.
You pick a 3-digit number, sir. So
I
you
did.
pick a 3-digit number of your choice.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, you will log in. First, you go to service.sumo. Oh, sorry, grab the wrong URL there. You're going to go to service.sumologic.com. Thank you, Odell. And then you're going to log in as training plus analyst with that 3-digit number that you choose at sumologic.com.
Your account is
Password
blocked.
is listed here.
Yeah. He said your account is blocked. Please try again 13 minutes or contact your local administrator.
I'm sorry.
My account is blocked. That's
Okay. So do me a favor. Grab a different number.
okay. Let me.
And try that. Don't forget the exclamation mark at the end of the password. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. There is an exclamation mark there. Just so you know, what happens is after you've had so many unsuccessful attempts, it locks the account temporarily in this training environment.
I tried this one, but still not working.
Okay. Oh, do me a favor, Viral, on the training, you misspelled training, at least the one you put in the chat box. So it should be TRAINING plus analyst ANALYST numeral 107 at sumologic.com. That's all correct. But you did manage to misspell training, which put in the chat box.
Yep, I'm in.
Cool. Outstanding. Anybody else got any problems logging in? All right. Then let's get back to it. So we're all logged in. Let me go ahead and clear the hands, the raised hands here. Bear with me a second. Okay. And let's talk a little bit about this interface. So again, here you're logged in. Maybe you've got a bunch of tabs open up here. We'll deal with that in just a few minutes. Over here is where our navigation panel is. So where it says Sumo Logic, and you see this hamburger menu, or whether you call it stack of pancakes, or whatever you call it, click on it. It opens up your navigation panel. And in your navigation panel, here's your shared library that you and others can see across your environment. It's maintained by your administrator. Here's your personal folder where you can save things to your personal folder. And even if they're in your personal folder, as you probably know if you've attended another class, you can share it with others in your organization. Okay. Over here is my favorites. So if I want to mark something as a favorite, make it easy for me to find it, I simply click on that folder, that object, whatever. There's a little star over here. If I click on the star and fill it in, it is now part of my favorites. There it is. I don't want it to be a part of my favorites anymore. You click on the star again, it hollows it out, and it removes it off your favorites. Over here is my recent. And under my recents, I can see recently shared with me or recently opened by me. So there's a little toggle there. One other thing I didn't mention yesterday, but I probably should have. Under library here, under library, if you click on these three vertical dots, you'll see that you can switch to browse by creator. And by switching to browse by creator, you can see what users have created things and look for that. Or again, you can also switch back to shared content view where you're seeing the folder structure. And if you go in here and you're searching for things in the library, you can search for specific dashboards. You can search for scheduled searches. You can search by specific content created by or whatever. So hopefully that makes it a little easier. And this search up here is case insensitive, just so you know. Now, as Odell pointed out in the fundamentals class on this, again, home tab, learn tab, we've got a bunch of micro lessons, a bunch of quick little 5-10 minute videos on various things. In fact, we got a whole bunch of them out there on YouTube. So if you go out to YouTube and search for Sumo Logic, you'll find we've got a bunch of nice little micro channels on how to create a collector strategies, how to create a source, all kinds of stuff. Down here, we've got labs for fundamentals and administration. Obviously, our lab for this class isn't there. I'm going to show you where it is in just a minute. Here, there's a link here for cheat sheets. So you can click on that, and that will take you to our log operators cheat sheet that I pointed out yesterday. So these are the various operators and functions and stuff that we use. And so again, if you're curious, I'll just take a moment and put this in the chat box. And so there is that. There's also our documentation, what's new, our community site where people can put in suggestions, ideas for enhancements, things like that. Of course, I'd be remiss in talking about our Get Training site, where you can sign up for other classes. All of our training is free, okay, which is, of course, my favorite price. And so you can sit there and sign up for training. We got to get that updated, I see. But you can see where our classes are and that sort of thing. All right, and of course, get support. You can ask for support here and log in a support ticket, that sort of thing. You can also do a lot of that stuff here in your main menu. So down in my navigation panel, this part down here is our main menu. And if I click on help, I can get into my documentation here, my community, my support area, all of that fun stuff. Speaking of documentation, let's go find our labs for this class. So I can go into documentation, click on it, and it will take me to our product documentation. Or if you're kind of old school like me, I like to open up a new tab to get to our documentation. It's real simple. The URL is help.sumologic.com. That's help.sumologic.com. And what I have here is a series of chapters. Everything about Sumo Logic is in here. So for example, you want to learn about the Cloud SIM? There's a chapter on that. Those of you interested in APIs, there's a chapter on APIs. Metrics, there's a chapter on metrics, a chapter on visualizations and alerts. But the chapter I want to focus on is the first chapter. Start here. You might notice that if you go in here, there's something called Quick Start Labs and Tutorials. So I'm just going to click Start here just to show you, to break it down. When you're in the documentation anywhere, you will see that it shows you your chapter headers on the left, and then whatever chapter you're in, it starts breaking it down. So I could have clicked directly on Quick Start Labs and Tutorials, or, thank you, or I could have clicked on Start here like I did and walk my way down there. So here is where we have all the labs for all of our classes. Now, this cloud security monitoring section, that's where our labs are for this class. And so I would like you, if you can't already find it, or if I lost you or whatever, I'm going to give you this URL. Max, take it easy, buddy. So here is where we are. So here's where we are. And that is, I do want you, if you can, to right click, if you're in Google Chrome, to pin this down. So it's kind of, where we can access it, where we can see it, and that sort of thing, because we're going to switch back and forth between our labs and our environment, our training environment. Okay. Now, a lot of our questions, as I said, come from these labs. So I'll try to point things out as we go and try to help you out. Now, this deals with AWS CloudTrail. Many of you, if you're using AWS CloudTrail, you probably can be able to use this dashboard that we create. For those of you who happen to be on Azure, I've taken these labs and I've actually created them for Azure. So there's a section there for Azure. So if you're running Azure, you can do these labs if you want to on your own. They're not covered on the test. They're not covered in this class, but they're there in case you want to play. Now here, and again, in my hands-on labs, cloud security, we're going to, introduction here. Click on introduction, and it says, what are we going to do? We are going to create a dashboard for our Security Operations Center, our SOC, so we can detect, investigate, and respond to abnormalities and security issues in our logs. So we're going to create some sort of dashboard to provide some information, and it provides you some good information about this. Talks about accessing this training environment, and this is another place that you can go to get information about our training environment. But basically, we're going to go ahead and move on to lab 1, where we are going to start creating queries and start building on things. Before I start lab 1, though, I want to see if there are any questions or any concerns. I'll take that as no. We're in good shape. Okay. All right. So in lab 1, and again, if anybody needs it, here is the URL for lab 1. I'll put that in the chat box. But here, what we are going to do is we want to look at, as a starting point, who's logging into our AWS environment. Okay, got to start someplace. And so we're going to deal with our CloudTrail logs that provide this information. Now, for those of you who've been in class with us before, you can take this code that we have, you can right click, you can copy it, and you can go in here and you can grab a new log search. So if I click on new log search, everything we're going to do in this class is going to be new log search. And then you could paste this code in. Now, the problem is you don't understand the code. So let me explain to you what we're doing. And let me walk you through this code. So I'm going to start off here. we recommend that you label things, your data sources, by using a metadata tag called source category. So source category equals labs, in my case, /AWS /CloudTrail. And as I start typing, I start seeing my options. So I'm going to select that CloudTrail log. I'm also going to change this instead of 15 minutes to 60 minutes. How much log data do you want to see? 16 minutes, 15 minutes? Do you want to see a specific date range of logs? What do you want to see here? Okay. I'm just going to make it 60 minutes. So I'm going to run this. I'm going to click on this blue button, or I can hit the enter key on my keyboard. So basically what I'm seeing here is I am seeing the results of my logs. I have 11,179 log messages. It took me a second to run. It's done. And here's my session ID. If I want to, I can show a histogram there of how many messages I have on each minute, or I can hide that if I don't want it. And then down here, I see the results of my log. And what I want to do is I want to grab some of these fields. By the way, over here on the left is your field browser. And I could, if I want to, just check mark some of these to see them. Okay. Melody asked, what's the significance of the session ID? The session ID is only significant if you're having problems with a query. Then our support folks will ask you for your session ID so they can see what's going on. Okay, so the session ID is your web session ID. So I hope that answers your question, Melody. Good question. Thanks for asking. All right. So what I want to do is I want to grab a couple of fields. So if I go back here to my lab, I see that I'm grabbing a field here. I'm going to skip the first one for a second. Bear with me. I'll explain why. But I'm going to grab event type. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to find the field called event type. And if I need to expand, I can click on this button and expand, or I can hit expand all and it'll expand all the fields. But there is event type. I can right click on event type and I can say I want to parse selected key. So now what that does, that adds a line here that's going to pull out this field. It says JSON field equals raw. Raw is my raw data of event type. And when I run this, now I see here's my time, here's my message, and it pulls out my event type. AWS API call. Now, it's called event type this way. I want to change what it's called. So I'm going to add an as clause to it. And I'm going to sit there and type in what I want to call it, event_type. And I'm going to run this. Now I notice my field name up here is called event type, event_type, excuse me. And so that's what this line is trying to tell us. We're extracting out a field and we're renaming it. This as clause, we're renaming that field. Okay. Now I want to grab the source IP and call that src IP. So again, I'm going to go in here. I'll expand all, make it a little easier maybe for me to see. There's my source IP, right click, parse selected key as src_IP. Now you can call it anything you want to. You can call it the IP, my IP, client IP, whatever, but we're going to call it source IP. So now when I run it, I'm seeing here's my event type, here's my source IP. Now, the user identity is a little tricky because when I go in here to user identity and expand that field, some of these do not have a username. Okay. Some of these do not have a username. And so that's why I skipped that initially. But I could find one that does have a username. In fact, let me just take this code out. Excuse me. Copy this. Now, it doesn't make any difference what order I put these in, by the way. But I do want to point something out. And that is right now, before I run this, I have 11,483 messages, log messages. Once I add this line and I run it again, I am suddenly down to 2,886. Why? Because when I parse fields out, it also filters what I see. So if I don't have the field user identity.username, I'm going to drop that message. I'm going to remove it. Now, those of you in yesterday's class learned that if we didn't want to drop it, didn't want to filter for it, we could apply the no drop clause. But we're not going to worry about doing that today. We only want to see this information. So here I now can see who the user is, how they logged in, and their IP address that they logged in from. And this is how we get that information. Okay, Matt asked a really good question. He notices that his results are different than those provided in the labs. You're absolutely correct. So when we look here at the results, this number, okay, mine may be different than yours, because what I'm doing when I click on this button, it's 60 minutes from the time I click on this button. So when I click on this button, it's now my number is going to be a little different, 2760. So it goes back from the time I click on this button, it goes back 60 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever your setting is here. So that's why your result number may vary from mine. You didn't click it exactly the same time I did. So Matt, thank you for asking. It's actually a very good question. I appreciate it.
Morning, John. Question about the field
Yes, sir.
in for actor, right? As the one we get, it says user identity dot username. That just seems a little confusing because if we're going to go by dot notation for an object, it seems like it should be buried further. And if I try the method that you said about highlighting the actual item inside of the JSON and then saying parse, it displays more like I would expect it to. Identity, user identity dot, I don't know, session context dot. So how is it able to figure out username right under user identity as actor?
Let me comment this out, okay? Just so I can provide complete disclosure here. Okay, notice I'm up to a lot more log messages. If I explore the user identity field, not all of them have a username, okay? Not all of them have a username. Some of them don't. Now, the trick is you have to know, you have to look at your logs and see where these fields are. Let me just jump here to the end where hopefully I don't have a username. There's a username there, son of a gun. Okay. Hate when this happens. But
Well,
there should be some that don't
can
have
you
it.
just for a second, can you highlight username?
Sure. And I'll
and
right click
right-click
on it and
and
I'll
choose-
parse it.
Exactly.
And you'll see it added it right in there.
Oh.
And that looks just like the line above it, except for the as clause.
Huh.
Now, you are correct. In some logs, different fields may be in different parts of that. So it may be under user identity .session .whatever .whatever .whatever. Whatever field that you want, that's what you're going to parse and extract.
Okay.
Hey, just for what that guy was saying, there's two usernames. There's one that's possibly in user identity, and there's also one that's in the session context or whatever you said. So you looked at the one that was in the session context, and the one that we're looking at is the one that's in the user identity as a direct child.
Correct.
I see it.
Correct.
Thank you. That was the confusion.
Yeah. So in these logs, there might be multiple occurrences of fields, but they have different namespaces, and therefore they may have different meanings. This is the one that we want. And again, this is where you have to start looking at your logs and seeing what information you have and where that information is. So we all caught up, we all clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate the questions, don't worry. All right, so that's how we got this done. They also want us to grab event name. So let's go ahead and grab event name here in step 2. Event name right there, right click, parse selected text. And again, we want to throw a nice little rename and call it event underscore name. You don't have to rename these, but it's kind of nice that we're going to name them something that we like. Okay. All right, so we have done steps 1 and 2 here, parse selected text. Life is good. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a parameter. This is like a filter where the user can select what they want. There are 2 ways to create a parameter. You can either type in the command and then create a parameter out of that text, or as you type it, you can create your parameter. So the first way we're going to do this is how to manually create a parameter. So all of our commands get connected by a pipe. They're piped together. So I type in a pipe. And by the way, if you need to do a shift, if you need to go to the next line, it's either a shift enter or an alt enter. That's what takes you to the next line. Shift enter or alt enter, depending on what keyboard you're on. Type in my pipe, where, and then this is going to be my field name, where event name matches. Because this is a string, I have to use the matches operator. And then I want to type in here event name. It is event name. I just make sure it's not event name, not event. Oh, I'm sorry, event type, excuse me. Change these to my event type. Well, something looked a little weird to me. Type. Now, to make a parameter out of this, all I have to do is highlight any of the code that's in my box, and I now suddenly have the option to create a parameter. So I can click on this, create a parameter, and then I can give my parameter a name. I'm going to give it the same name as my field name. Hopefully makes sense. Additionally, I can specify a default value. In my case, I want to use the default value of a star, so I see all of my event type here, guys, sorry. So I want to call my parameter the same name as my field name, event type. My default value is going to be a star, so I see by default all of my event types. Its data type is a string, right? And then I can also put in here a description. Now, there's one little small problem. When I click save, it has now turned this into a parameter, and it has added my parameter over here. Now, what I could do if I want to is I could hide this from my users, and I could then, number one, run this to make sure it works. And then I could look at my event type. I could take this event type right here if I wanted to, copy it, paste it in here, and now it filters for just those event types. It's taking a little time there. Here you go. Okay. So I'm down to 2,500 records, as opposed to if I have a star in there, I have should have more.
Where do you create the parameter? I don't see the
Okay. Right. You swiped over it. So let me go back here. Okay. You swiped over where it says event type. That gives you the ability to create a parameter.
So is that what you use for publishing your query to customers, for example, but you don't want them to get to the query itself and you just want them to be able to change some value?
Well, you can do it. You can do it one of two ways. If I send this out as a dashboard, which I ultimately will, then they will be able to see the parameter, but they won't see the underlying query. If I give them the query like this, then yes, I can hide this so the user doesn't see the underlying query.
Okay, is it lockable by ACL?
It's not lockable, but there's this little button right here that they have to know how to click on to see the underlying query.
Right,
and I don't know if there's a privilege for that. So I don't, to answer your question, I don't know for sure.
Thank you.
Let me just double check on that.
Oh,
yeah.
It's more user friendly though. That's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So again, how do we do this? Again, just a friendly reminder here. Let's go back to this. Those of you might not have seen it. Again, I have a line here that says where event type matches event type. If I highlight anything in my query, anything at all, suddenly over to the right, I have this option that says create a parameter. I click on that. I'm going to call my parameter name the same as my field name, event type. I'm going to use its default value as a star. Everything, I want to see everything. It's a wildcard. Now, what I'm missing here, quite frankly, is I'd like to have a pick list, right? When I go in here to my parameter and I backspace over this, I'd like to see a listing of all my choices. We're going to fix that in just a few minutes. So we're going to come back and show you how to do that. We'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. Okay. John asked, the AWS CloudTrail app uses parse anchors versus our log search specifies JSON file type. Any reason for this? I don't know. John, I assume most of our apps that's using CloudTrail data should use JSON. So the AWS CloudTrail app should actually use JSON, not parse anchors. I don't know why.
Okay, thank you.
So good question. I don't have a good answer. All right. So back to my lab. Are we all caught up? Is there any questions? Okay, no worries. Ken, did you get a chance to log in? Okay, where's the lab? Yep. So the lab is just copy it here. Here's a link to the lab, Ken, to help you out. Do you have the login information? Again, same login information we used yesterday. Service.sumologic.com. Okay. Okay. I don't know, Tom, good question. I don't know though. Don't worry about that. All right. So what I want to do here, we're up step 6. We've gone in here. We've filled out this information. Life is good. Now, the other way that you and I can create a parameter is as we type it. So watch this trick. And this will be much easier, I think. If I want to create a parameter on actor, again, I type in a pipe. I type in my where clause, where my field name actor matches. And then what I can do is, notice that my notation there is 2 braces, the field name, 2 braces, and what do you know? It's automatically created for me a parameter. Now, the only thing I have to do is go into the properties of this parameter. Notice it's got the right parameter name. I've just got to set the default value. And now when I run this, I see all my actors and all my event types. But this is how you and I create parameters.
So
Sorry,
basically, anything in a parenthesis is automatically create the parameters, right?
Yes, but it's in braces, not parentheses.
Oh, sorry, yeah, braces.
No problem. Yeah. Ma'am, you had a question?
Yeah, I didn't quite catch how you went back into the parameter properties to give it the name.
These more action
got
buttons
it.
right here.
Thank you.
No problem. No sweat. Thank you for asking. Keep in mind, guys, 2 things or 3 things. Number one, I've probably had about 3 cups of coffee, so I might be going a little fast. And, you know, so feel free. If you don't see something, if I went too fast, please hold me accountable. Want to help you. Okay. What is the relevance of parameters? Good question, Roll. Now what happens is my users can pick the event type, or they can pick the actors, they can filter automatically without having to use that legend box. And more importantly, I want to be able to have a bunch of queries where I can change the value of the parameter value, and it affects all my panels. So that's what we're driving for here, Raul. And again, you'll see it in just probably about a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Can you edit and remove a parameter? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can delete a parameter if you want to. If you want to just get rid of those brackets, it deletes the parameter, delete the line, whatever you want. And for those of you familiar with our product, you know that you can also comment out lines by typing in 2 forward slashes. That also gets rid of that parameter. So we'll show you and talk about how to comment things out quite a bit. We'll be doing that to troubleshoot. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right, then let's go ahead and continue on. So we've got our 2 parameters created, and that's what this where clause is. Now what I want to do is I want to count by my actor, my event type, and my event name. I could type this stuff in, or I could copy and paste it. But now that I've filtered it, I want to count by, and I think it was, make sure I get it right here. Actor, event type, event name. Sorry if you hear the little doggy in the background. He's up here with me. We put him up here while the remodeling is going on. So when I do this count by, this creates my aggregates tab. If you do a count or a min or a max or a sum, it automatically adds and creates an aggregates tab. From this aggregates tab, you will notice that I can create visualizations. If I don't do an aggregation, a count, a sum, a min or max, I only have this messages tab. You'll see there are no icons to create any visualizations. So I must do some form of aggregation to be able to create the visualizations that I want. Okay, Max, come here. Hang on a second, folks. Bear with me a moment. Just bear with me. Folks, here's my executive producer. Here's Max. He's hanging out with me today, keeping an eye on me. So making sure I do things. So we're hiding him from the remodel, the kitchen remodel. So sorry about that if you hear him in the background. All right, so I've counted by that. I created my aggregates. I can, if I want to, start creating bar charts or column charts or whatever kind of charts I want. If I want to go back and look at the data, that's this table icon right here. And so I can see my raw data. Okay. All right. Next thing it wants me to do is it wants me to filter for the top 10. So we've got a function, an operator in Sumo Logic called top. We've got one called bottom. And so I can say I want to see only the top 10 actor by event type and underscore count. Again, you can copy these and paste these, or you can type them. I recommend copying and pasting. You're less likely to make a mistake if you copy and paste. But top 10 actor by event type, top 10 actor by event type and underscore count. Now, this is where things get a little funny. This count is an operator. It counts things. Think of a teacher in a classroom counting students. 1, 2, 3, 4. The results of this count are stored as underscore count. And so now I can filter by, here we go. Let's put a space in there. Like I said, it's better to copy than copy and paste. So now I'm seeing by my actor, by my event type, by my count here. All right, I'm seeing only the top 10 of these, the filtered for the top 10. Now what I want to do is I want to go back into my parameters here a little bit. Actually, hold on a second. Hang on a second.
Are we going to do the transpose?
Oh, transpose. Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you. Yep, my apologies. So what happens here is I have my actor, my event type. This is all kind of a flat table. I want to turn this into a pivot table. So I'm going to add another line. And I am going to transpose. Thank you very much. Transpose. What do I want on my row? On my row, I want my actor. What do I want in my column? I want my event type. And so what that will do is that will take and show me in my rows, my actor. And then across my columns, I'll have my different event types. And then my count is in the middle. And this tends to make it a little bit better, makes more like a stacked type chart here. So the next thing we're going to do is change this to a stack type chart. And then also in our settings here, we can go into properties and we can change the colors if we want to. So we're using some sort of a red based scheme. As a rule, I don't like putting reds in dashboards unless we're talking about errors, but the example in the book has us using red here. So here I can see that Ankit, he has logged in through an API call 170 times over the last 60 minutes. He's also logged in through AWS console sign-in 58 times. Now, is that a lot in an hour? That's certainly a lot of logins. APIs, maybe not so much, but certainly a lot of logins. That's about a log in a minute. So maybe that's suspicious activity. Heck, look at Kevin here. Kevin's logged in 270 times via API call and 66 times, so maybe something's going on there. That's why we're creating these, to see some potential suspicious activity. Okay. Somebody says we're really not counting here. Actually, we are counting. We're counting the number of logins because we're really trying to look and see, is somebody logging in excessively? That could be an indication of some problems. Okay. And I'll let you decide whether that's an indication here of problems. So that's why we use count. We could have sorted this if we wanted to, but sorting it lets you sort the results. So if I wanted to sort it in descending order, I could certainly do that. All right. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm building out this dashboard. There's my results in numeric form. And then I'm going to create a bar graph chart. I'm going to change the color to red. And then we will get into, by the way, we're going to finish this lab, then we're going to take a break. So in case you're wondering what's going to go on here for a break, we're going to take a break here in just a second. So are we all caught up? Are we all in good shape here? Any questions?
Yeah, yours has two different types. Is it just your data is different than ours?
No. If you're assuming you're seeing your event type here as a star.
Yeah.
And then if you use this transpose command.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I am seeing two different colors and you should see two different shades here as well.
No, I see what was in the documentation, just the one shade.
I understand that. The documentation is only if you're looking for a specific event type. You should actually see both of them. Do me a favor. Go back to the data here. Do you see two columns? If you don't see two columns, that's why you're getting the one shade.
I see. Okay, thank you.
No problem. So, and usually that's because you set your event type to something other than a star. There should be two different event types that you see. And again, I assume you're using our training environment. Now back to this. What we want to do next is we want to, as I said before, wouldn't it be nice if I moved over event type, if I had a pick list here of values, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Well, it is going to be nice, and we're going to make that happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our parameters property here for our event type, manage parameter settings. So here's our parameter settings here. And what we want to do, I need to move this out of the way. Actually, I see I've got a couple of questions. Let me make sure we're in good shape. Okay. Raul, you still can't understand parameter. What don't you not understand about parameter? Help me to understand what's confusing you. Okay. Parameters purpose allows me to filter. Okay. That's what it allows me to do. So tell you what, bear with me in just a minute and hopefully it will clear itself up. Just humor me. Humor me. Take it on faith. Yep. Yeah. Matt says you need to roll with this for right now. You're pretty much right. Right. So now what I want to do is I want to change this so I can see the values of event type. So here I'm going to click on my more action button, these three vertical dots, manage my parameter settings. And down here at the bottom, I can set the values for the parameters. And I can choose one of several formats. One, I can type in text entries, give it a pick list, manually type in my pick list. Problem is my values change and I got to update the pick list. I could also create label value pairs. So I have a metadata tag. I have the values associated with that metadata tag. I could use that. Or I can also create a lookup. And that's what we're going to use in this case. We're going to choose lookup. Lookup is a simple query that's going to write and save my values. So let's choose lookup. And then here we're going to pick the lookup file. Now the lookup file has already been created for us. But in a little while in another lab, we'll show you how to create this lookup. But in our case, we're going to type in /shared, because it's in our shared directory, / and we're going to start typing in event_type. And as we do that, we should see that there's something here called shared /event_types. We're going to select that. And then here, because it's reading this file, it says, what field do I want to display? In that file, there's a field called event type. And that's what we're going to use. Next. So we're going to have this lookup file. I'm going to share the field for values. We're going to click save. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I remove the star, I now see a pick list of my values. And I can, if I want to, select the different values and see how this works. So I can filter by event type. And if I did this for actor, I could be able to filter for which actor I want to see. All right. So that is what those steps are doing. And if I put my global card back in, my wild card, I see all my values. But that is what is going on here in customizing a parameter with lookup table. Steps 11 and 12 and 13 and 14, and you can now see the results. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a dashboard for this. Okay. Okay. So Ryan mentions, to confirm in this example, if I had a large list of actors in a CSV file I wanted to query, you could use the parameter lookup could be a file, could be a flat file, but more than likely we recommend that you put it in the Sumo system. So yes, you could, Ryan, that's absolutely correct. What is the format of the lookup table? The format of the lookup table is nothing more than the format of a query. So you'll find that that query is the results of a listing of all of my event types. Yep. So thanks, Odell. So what I want to do here is I want to start building this dashboard. By the way, this is the hardest lab. After this, everything gets much easier and that sort of thing. So don't worry, but we're going to go ahead and add this to a dashboard. That's what we're going to do. So this is the last thing we're going to do before we break for a break here. So what I want to do is, again, in my aggregates tab, I have this option that says I can add this to a dashboard. And that's what I want you to select. I want you to select add to dashboard. And this panel title is my top 10 user activity. That's what they want us to type in there. Top 10 user activity. And then for the dashboard name in the directions, I think they want you to type in here, SOC_ your initials and 3 random numbers. Okay. I don't care if you put the random numbers in there. Okay. SOC_ your initials. I will put today's date in mind. Let's see, 02/17. Okay. But you can do whatever you want. And the point is that whatever you type in here, it should say, I want to create a new dashboard. There should not be a dashboard with an existing dashboard with SOC_ your initials and whatever your 3 digits are, or whatever. You can use today's date if you want, 02/17. You should have the option to create a new dashboard here. And if it does, I want you to go ahead and click on that. Now, important thing. Number 1, remember the name you called your dashboard. Number 2, this switch. By default, this is going to create it in our new dashboard user interface. For this class, I don't want to use the new dashboard interface. The parameters are a little different, a little bit different work. I'm in the process of rewriting these labs for the new dashboards, but we're not there yet. So I want you to take the switch. I want you to click on it so the knob goes to the left. It's not blue, it's gray. Make sure you turn this off. If you don't turn this off, we're going to have to do this again. Then you'll notice it's going to save it to your personal directory. Then you can click add. And now what it's going to do is it's going to create a new dashboard. And it's adding this panel to our dashboard. Now, the first thing I notice is, gee, I'd like to make this a little bit bigger. So you can drag it, make it a little bit bigger. But more importantly, up here in this filter column, I can click on this filter column. I can go to event type, and I can then pick the value here that I want, and it automatically affects this filter panel as well as any other panels I might have on here. So somebody is trying to understand the value of parameters. The value of parameters allows me to now filter and see what I want to see on this dashboard. So Raul, I hope that helps you. And again, you'll see it more clearly in the next lab when we put another dashboard in here. Okay. Okay. Yep. Matt gets an error when he tries to do it unless he puts an asterisk back in the parameter field. That's true. Yep. So, and then by the way, if you did open up this filter panel, you can close it up by clicking the X box up here in the upper right-hand corner. So congratulations, folks. You've done the first lab, and the next couple labs will be much simpler and much easier, and we'll go from there. Any questions so far? Then I'd say you've earned yourself a break. Don't mind, I'm going to make this a 5-minute break just to make things a little quicker here. When this counter gets down to 0, I'd like you all to be back. So feel free to take a break. I'll see you back here in about 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Thanks. Hey, folks, it's John. Hopefully we are all back. We've all had a chance to fill up our coffee cups, teacups, whatever, and take a stretch break or whatever we needed to do. So hopefully we are all back, ready to roll. Let me just check the participants, make sure everybody's got their mics enabled. Excellent. Any questions so far before we start lab 2?
Yeah, John, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Is there any reason why I can only filter when you try to do the manage parameter settings, that the only one you get to add is for the event type and not the actor?
Because we're going to do the actor later, and I'm going to show you how to create that lookup.
Okay.
So we'll get to it later.
Okay.
Yep. By the way,
John,
yes, sir.
quick question for you, and I think this is something we're going to talk about internally already, but I can't add the dashboard as a new dashboard. It gives me parameter errors. Is that my end? Probably.
Okay. So when you added this, you got some sort of an error message. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, something about parameters. But
Yeah,
I can
it
I
helps
can
me
add
if you're
it.
specific. Okay. Now, the problem is when you did this, right, back to the search tab, when you add to dashboard and you gave it a name,
Mhm.
right, let's put something in here just to get past this. When you went and you gave this thing a name, hang on a second, there we go. Create new dashboard. You probably didn't throw the switch back.
I didn't.
And that's why. So what happened, what you've got to do to fix that is you're going to go back to this log search query. You're going to go back and add the dashboard, give the dashboard a different name, sock underscore your name and the 3 digits or whatever you want, make it a 4-digit number, I don't care, but something different. And then make sure you throw that switch.
Gotcha.
And by the way, I'll be honest with you, you're not the only one that probably did that. So I appreciate you asking.
Thanks.
Somebody asks, okay, well, why are parameters not showing up in my dashboard? Well, here, hopefully your dashboard. What happens is you want to click on this filter icon. That will get the parameters to show up. And again, it closes. You think you click on this to close it up. No, it's actually a close button over here to the right. So there you go. So if you're not seeing your parameters, that's why.
Now, John, that filter is dashboard wise as opposed to the one inside the little panel.
Correct. And actually, let me be more specific. I can click on this filter. You see my little gear icon here? I can specify what panels I want it to affect.
Oh, very cool. Okay, thank you.
No problem. So, yeah. All right. Let's hit the review questions just to kind of help you prepare for the exam. So on lab 1 here at the bottom, it says JSON field equals underscore raw source IP, blah, blah, source IP. Extracts the source IP and all subsequent values appearing in the incoming log messages. Is that statement true or false? What do you think? Any takers? True, absolutely correct. Yep. So this is going to grab my IP addresses, just like the one with event types is going to grab my event types. Double curly brackets enclose a variable label are used to create parameters. Is that statement true or false?
True.
True, absolutely correct. That's how you can create them. Or you can swipe over it and say create parameter. That's right. Excellent. And then the third question. I use the settings icon in the message tab to change the color of the bar graph. What do you think? True or false?
That'd be false.
That's false. You're absolutely correct. It is false because the
Gotcha.
message tab here doesn't have the properties icon. It's only the aggregates tab. So it's a trick question. So good job. Glad you flushed it all out. All right. Now, lab number 2, let's go ahead and click on that. And let's see where we're going. All right, good. Let me just check some things here real quick. Okay, good. Let me just go ahead and clean up the Q&As and stuff. So lab number 2, we're going to do a geographic console of logins. And you'll notice that we start with the same basic code. So rather, since I've already explained the same basic code, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. The only thing different is now we've grabbed a new field, response elements.console login as result. So that's the thing we're going to add. So I'm going to take this in lab 2, step 2. I'm going to take this code. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new log search. And I'm going to paste that code in here. And I'm going to run it, right? Always a good idea when you copy and paste code, make sure it runs. So here I can see my actor, I can see my event type, I can see my source IP, and now I can also see my result, whether it was successful or it failed. Okay. Then as I scroll down here, you can see that we're going to add some filters. We want to make sure that the actor and the event type are not null. So this reads where the exclamation mark is the word not, where not is empty actor, where actor is not empty, also where event type is not empty. So we want to make sure they're not empty. They've got values. We want to filter it if they do. So basically we're adding that information in there. Filtering for any nulls. Then here I have my good old parameters. So I'm going to go ahead and copy line step 5 there. I'm going to copy that code. I'm going to paste it in. When I paste that code in, you'll see it interprets the double brackets, says, oh, cool, I got some parameters. I am going to put in here a star and a star there. And I'm going to go ahead and run this, make sure it runs. So as you add code, it's always a good idea to test, make sure things work. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a geo lookup. We're going to use the lookup command, the geo lookup specifically. And for those of you with us in Search Mastery yesterday, you know that we can basically go to this location, which is a partner of ours called Newstar, and we're going to pass in the IP address to this location, and it can give us things like latitude, longitude, country code, country name, region. So basically that's what this line is doing for me. It's giving me all that lovely information. So I'm going to take that code. I'm going to paste it in here. And again, the way this works is I'm going to take the source IP that I have, that I extracted up here. I'm going to pass that in as IP. I'm going to go to this URL, which is going to send it to my partner at Newstar. And it's going to then give me, for that IP address, it's going to give me the latitude, the longitude, the country name, the city, and the region. I need, in order to display this on a map box plot, I need latitude, longitude, and count. I still don't have count yet. But when I run this, now down here at the bottom, I start seeing here's my actor, here's my city, my country name, event type, et cetera, et cetera. The order that it displays them down here, as we all probably know, is alphabetical. I could use the fields command, and we'll see that later, where I can change the order of what's being displayed down here. By the way, my message is always at the end. So this is now giving me latitude and longitude information. All right. Now what we want to do is we want to count. And I want to count based on who the actor is, the source IP, the latitude, the longitude, the country name, and the event type. So I want to have a count of all of those unique values. All right, so when I run this, that count is going to create this aggregates tab. And on this aggregates tab, because you see I'm counting by actor, source IP, latitude, longitude, country name, and event type. And there's my count. Now, because I have in this query latitude, longitude, and count, I also have this little push pin enabled. If I didn't have latitude or longitude or count, this would not be enabled. But since it is, I can now click on it and it turns it into a map. It turns it into a map that I can see. You might notice there's several renditions of, Eastern, Western Hemisphere, Eastern, Western Hemisphere, Eastern, Western Hemisphere. That's because of the X and Y axes of this being displayed. If this was a little bit taller, I wouldn't see those three versions of the world, if you will. 3 iterations. So our question, Nicholas.
Yes, please. Does it have to be named latitude, longitude, or it looks at the data type and it can be any name?
Okay, no, it's got to be named latitude and longitude.
Thank you.
And let me be precise here. If I go up here where this lookup command is, or better yet, if I do a search in our help for geo lookup, help.sumologic.com, it's going to take me to my documentation. Then if I do a search for geo lookup, this will tell you everything you probably want to know
Okay, cool.
about how to do that and the commands and all that fun stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Perfect. Thank you.
you're very welcome. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So good news. We are in good shape here. What we now want to do is we created our map. I clicked on that little map button icon right here. And we want to add it to our dashboard. So we want to call this panel name Cloud Trail Geo of Sign-in Activity. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on this Add to Dashboard button. Again, I'm going to use this as my panel name. And then here I want to reference my dashboard that I created. So this is why you need to know what you called your dashboard. So JWM, and then I put today's date in here, 2/17, right? There we go. So now, because I selected an existing dashboard, when I click add, it's going to add this to my new dashboard. Now it's also warning me. This is message here is a warning that says, look, I noticed in your query, you've got some filters, some parameters called event type and actor, but you've also got those in the dashboard. Did you mean to have them be the same name, or should they have been separate names? We want them to be the same name. So if we want them to be the same name, this is okay. We're just going to tell it to add panel. Otherwise, we could rename them to something else if we wanted to. We don't want to. We want them to be the same name. So now it goes back here in my dashboard. It's now added this other panel. Let me shrink this one down a little bit. Let me move this one around, make it a little bit bigger here. And now, back to Raul's question. If I go in here to my filter, and if I change my event type to AWS API call, it affects both of those panels. And I've got no API calls that have logged in. You change it to the console login. Okay, so I can see where people have logged in. By the way, if I go over here, I change this back to a star. And even though I don't have a pick list over here, if I, for example, type in Gosha, I go over here and type in Gosha, G-O-S-I-A, it's going to filter both panels for where Gosha logged in from. And you can see here, Gosha logged in from several different locations. So that causes me concern. Now, in real life, you shouldn't have this problem. But in our data, we've put in a lot of data here to show a lot of security activity and security vulnerabilities. So don't panic. We've intentionally set this up this way. Okay, is there a way to modify the parameter names once it's on the dashboard? Errol, that's it. The answer to your question is yes, you can, but it's a little bit of work. So you can go up here and you can change it here, but then you got to change it in the individual queries. Okay, so you got to go and change it in the individual query. So it's a bit of work, but it can be done, yes. Okay, good. So how does it reconcile the difference in time? One panel is 60 minutes, the other panel is 15. Okay, great question, Matt. So let me answer your question. First of all, they probably should be the same time. Okay, so I should have gone in here and I should have made this 60. But regardless of what the time is, in 60 minutes, this will automatically refresh. In 60 minutes or 15 minutes, or whatever the value is, it'll automatically refresh. What if I wanted to constantly update? Well, if we're done editing this, we click on done editing so people can consume it. And then we can go to live mode. So as new log data comes in, it'll automatically refresh these dashboards. And that's probably what you want, this live mode. And it's still, yeah, The panels are still querying, so you get how that works. And I want to go back in here and I want to be able to edit this. So Matt, does that answer your question, sir? All right, good. Excellent. All right, that takes care of lab 2, folks. Now let's hit on lab 3. In lab 3, by the way, some questions here I want to head up real quick. So quiz questions here. Lookup uses the CrowdStrike data to provide latitude and longitude. Is that statement true or false?
False.
Rose, I haven't talked too much about CrowdStrike yet, so you may not be sure. Okay. Actually, Nicholas says, right, it's false. That's correct. So lookup uses Newstar data to give us latitude and longitude. We will use CrowdStrike data to get malicious activity on an IP or an email or whatever. So that's the first question is false. Question number 2, I can display a map without aggregating data. Can you? What do you think?
That's false.
False.
That's false. Without aggregation, without a count, you can't display a map. Plus, you won't see the map icon. You need some sort of an aggregate tab there to do that. And then 3, I can use add panel to add to an existing dashboard.
True.
True.
Of course.
From a new query, that's right. Okay. All right, so let's move on to lab number 3. And again, the code should look very familiar. So first couple of lines here, right? We're grabbing our fields. This time, again, we're looking at our console login as a result. So this is all kind of SSDD, same stuff, different day. Same stuff, different query. So I'm going to grab, again, a new log search, paste this stuff in. By the way, I'll let me set this to 60 minutes so I don't forget. Doesn't really make a difference what the time is, but I want to be consistent. Let me run this to make sure everything runs. Looking good. Now I'm going to sit there and again create our parameters and filters. Here's the code for that, right? We've seen that before. And now it creates my parameters. I'm going to add again a star here. And I'm going to go over here and add a star there. Again, make sure it runs. Then again, I'm going to add these where clauses. I want to make sure that they're not empty. And here, what we're doing in this dashboard is we want to look at the top 10 number of failed login attempts, which means that the result is going to equal failure, not success. So I want to filter where my result is set for failure and where my event type is equal to AWS console sign-in. So I'm going to add that. Again, I don't care about an API failure. I only care about when they've logged in and they signed in. Now, one little caveat. Because this event type is AWS console sign-in, I really don't need to filter for the event type, right? I could comment that line out, that parameter out. I really don't need that parameter. That parameter really doesn't do anything for me because I'm only looking at AWS console sign-ins. Doesn't tell you to comment that out. I'm just commenting it out just to show you, okay, that you could. And then we want to aggregate data over time. So here's some new stuff. We can create a time slice operator. Now, what a time slice operator does, it breaks things into buckets for me. So it breaks it up into 1 hour buckets. So if I'm going to break this into 1 hour buckets, that means I need a longer time frame than 60 minutes. That's only 1 hour. So let's make this 24 hours. So I have 24 buckets. Let me change that to 24. Let me go ahead and I'll take all this code for right now, just humor me. And I'll paste this code in. And then I'm going to comment out some lines. So I'm going to comment out these last 2 lines. Now, again, to comment on a line, it's 2 forward slashes. That's all you need to do. If you want to comment out a series of lines, you put your cursor where you want to start your comment. If you're on a Mac keyboard, you hold down the Option key. If you're on a Windows keyboard, you hold down the Alt key. And then you drag a line down. And whatever you type, like 2 forward slashes, will then comment out all of those lines. Now, only lines I really want to comment out here are the last two. So I was just showing you how you can comment out a bunch of lines, and you'll see that later in the course. So as I run this, again, I'm getting my results based on my actor. I'm only seeing failure results. I got 77 responses here. And this time slice is going to create 1 hour buckets. The problem is I'm not displaying that yet. I'm not saying I want to see that yet. So let me uncomment out this line, throw in that count by underscore time slice. So now I'm seeing my 1 hour time slices. So within these 1 hour time slices, now by default, these aren't in order. They're not sorted, okay? But if I use a top or a bottom operator or a transpose operator, it'll automatically sort them. If I don't use those, I have to sort by time slice. So there's a sort by that you can use. So this is now counting by my time slice, my actor, my event type, my event name, and my result, of course, of failure. Now I want to see my results, my top 10 results. So I use the top 10 command there. And now I see my actor, my time slice, my event type, my result, and the count. Now, what am I looking for here? I'm obviously looking for a high degree where somebody has failed to log in, right? Maybe they need some training on how to log in. Maybe somebody's maliciously trying to hack into somebody's account. I don't know, but if somebody's consistently failing to log in, it's something you need to take action on. When I was an IT manager, one of our senior partners was a man up in his years, and he consistently would manage to forget his password and have problems failing to log in and stuff like that. So you know your environment. So there's our results, and here we go. Okay. That's cute, Tom. Am I the one who keeps clicking on John's screen and wondering why Sumo does nothing? There you go. Excellent. Nicholas asked, can we create constants in the query results so that we can insert custom values for display? I mean, you can create constants anywhere in here. You can say, 500 as my constant tax rate or whatever. But you can create constants, but I'm not sure why you want to do that.
Map it. So we could insert in the map, making them look like aggregates, but really they're not. And then we could insert in the maps some values, maybe that would be legends. And
understand. As far as the maps go, Mapbox plot, we don't have as much control as we'd like.
I see. Okay.
So, I mean, I've worked for other companies which had Mapbox plots and they gave us a lot more customization.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, we don't have that customization here at Sumo. I haven't figured out why. I haven't asked anybody why.
Okay.
But, yep.
Out of the box. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Yep. So Matt asks a really good question. What is the easiest way to update your panel with changes you've made in your query? Do those changes automatically happen, or is there a sync button? Excellent question. The answer is there is no sync button. What you're going to do, and I'm going to go ahead and add this to my dashboard. So let me go ahead and add this to my dashboard, and I'm going to answer your question then, Ray. I'm sorry, Matt. So let me go ahead and click on this. Again, this is going to be my failed logins per the directions here in the lab. Top 10 failed login attempts. Oops. Might help if I get that T. And again, I want to add it to my existing dashboard. So in my case, SOC, JWM underscore 217. All right, there we go. And again, I get the same warning that I got before. I do want this to have the same name. So I click add panel. Now, let me go back to your question, Matt, because it's a good one, a real good one. So if I modify a query here, right? Let's say I modify this query, comment out some things, whatever, modify. When I run this, and my changes, you should see a button that says update dashboard. And so update dashboard will then update the dashboard. So you still have to click on this button to synchronize your query and your dashboards together. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. And we are good to go. Yep. All righty then, let's go ahead and let's get to the next lab. Lab 4, account compromise. What does an account compromise look like? Usually it looks like somebody failing to log in and then suddenly they're able to log in, right? That's an indication of a brute force attack, right? I want to log in as you. All I need to know to log in as you within your company is I need to know two things. I need to know your username and I need to know your password. In a lot of cases, that username might be your email address. So I'm already 50% there. Now I got to figure out your password, okay? Of course, a lot of us are now using different systems, Okta and multi-factor authentication and all that. So hopefully we can minimize the risk there. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to look at brute force attacks. And again, the situation of a brute force attack is somebody's constantly trying to log in. You fail, you fail, you fail, you fail. All of a sudden you successfully get in. That's an example of a brute force attack. So that's what our query is going to do. And you'll notice this query starts with the same basic code we had before. So here in this lab, if I go to log search and I paste this stuff in, let me make this all 24 hours, by the way. They should have been 24 hours, not 60 minutes. My apologies. I'll go back and fix those dashboards in a little bit. Then we're going to go ahead and add our parameters just like we did before. Then we're going to create a time slice operator, create 1-minute buckets. And then we got some new code here. So let's take a look at that code. Again, let me paste this code in. Let me take these last 3 lines. Again, I'm going to hold down my Option key on my Mac keyboard or my Alt key on my Windows keyboard, and I'm going to drag a line down, and then I can type in my 2 forward slashes to comment things out. By the way, if you'd like, you can put 2 forward slashes in a space. Maybe it helps you improve readability, whatever. Okay. Oh, I've got to add my stars here, my global wildcards. Make sure this stuff works. So what this line is doing, this first line, is it's going to create a new field for me. It's going to create a field called successes count. And it's going to say if the result is equal to success, if that condition is true, then I'm going to put a 1 in there. If that is not true, then I'm going to put a 0 in there. So the way these if statements work is here's my condition, here's my true value, here's my false value. So when I run this, it's going to now add a new field for us called success count. And again, if I were successful, I'll put a 1 in there. If they were not successful, I'll put a 0 in there. Okay. So far, I can't see a failure yet, but maybe it'll show up.
You need to uncomment the second to last.
I'm sorry?
You need to uncomment the bottom.
Well, no, I wanted to see if success count had a 0 in it. Now, my next line is going to do something very similar. Here, we're going to test for failure. And if it's a failure, I'm going to create a column called failure count. I'm going to put a 1 in there. Otherwise, I'll put a 0. So what I'm trying to do is keep track of my successes, and I'm trying to keep track of my failures. So again, here's failure count. Here's success count over here to the farther right. Right, there we go. And so, and then what I want to do is I want to aggregate them up. So again, whether you're using count, sum, operate, whatever operator you're using, that's going to create an aggregates tab. So it's going to sum up all of my successes and call this success. It's going to sum up all my failure counts and call it failure. And I'm going to sum this up by my time slice, by my actor, by my event type. So here's my time slice, my actor, my event type. Here's my number of successes. Here's my number of failures. Now what I want to do is one more little thing. Number one, if somebody hasn't failed, that's obviously not a brute force attack. So I'm going to filter it and say where failure is greater than 0. If nobody's failed, obviously it's not a brute force attack. So I'm going to filter that out. And then I'm going to take this mathematical formula. I'm going to take failure divided by success times 100 to come up with my failure percentage. Truth be told, I don't believe that's the right expression. That's the right formula, but I'm going to go with it right now just for simplicity's sake. Okay. It should probably be success minus failure over success times 100. But what I'm looking for here is a percentage. Obviously, the higher the percentage, the more likely I have a brute force attack. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Daruf. Yeah, failed divided by fail plus success in parentheses times 100. Yeah. Could we use variability as we did yesterday? Yes, you could, Nicholas. So yesterday we learned about some functions that we could use, you know, difference and various other functions that we could use. We could have used those. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And then here, what we're going to do is we're going to add this one to our dashboard. So we're going to call this possible brute force attacks. And so I'm going to add this to my dashboard. Notice the only time the add to dashboard comes up is on my aggregates tab. It doesn't come on my messages tab. So the only way you can add something to your dashboard is through aggregates. You might see that again soon. Let me paste this in. Again, I want to add it to my existing dashboard. So sock JWM, sock underscore JWM underscore today's date, add. Again, I've got the filters already exist. I'm going to click add panel because I do want them to have the same name. By the way, obviously I can now make these and change these. Let's change all these, by the way, to 24 hours. So they're all consistent. And most importantly, as I said before, I can go into my filter and I can change this information and I can see my results. Now, in a minute, we're going to go in and we're going to modify the actor so that we can get a pick list for our actors and we can filter by our actors. But hopefully now it's becoming clearer to you all the value of these parameters and how these parameters can help you and your users. Any questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So is there an API that would allow us to create queries automatically based on tenants configurations?
Yep. The answer to your question is there are, but that's not in the scope of this class.
No, I understand. Right.
But yeah, there's APIs that you can do. In fact, again, just to help you answer your own question, we go out to the proverbial documentation.
Right.
And you go out to the APIs, you will see that, yes, there are some where we can create queries programmatically. So lots and lots of APIs here that you can use. Okay. Searching for jobs, searching for views. There's queries in here. Metric query API. I forget what the other queries are, but they are in here.
Everything we do manually, we can do it through API, right? Almost.
You can do it through the API, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. And I mean, let me qualify. Everything you can do manually, you can do it through the API. That may be a strong, there may be some things in the product that maybe you can't do through an API. So I probably should be smart and careful about that.
You have Terraform plugins?
I'm sorry?
I guess you have Terraform plugins. I just look at them and.
Right. No, I understand that. Yeah, no, there's a lot of things, like I said, you can do. Yeah. Okay. Again, somebody asked if you comment out. Okay, let's see. Louise, you asked if I could repeat the part that you are creating the dashboard. I'm not sure. Are you saying I need to create the dashboard from scratch, or you don't have a dashboard, or what? I'm not sure what the question is here, Louise. Again, if you do need to create a dashboard from scratch, you go to any of your searches, click add the dashboard. You're going to type in a unique name here. I'm going to type in some garbage just so I know it's a unique name. That gives you the ability to create a new dashboard. Again, for our lab, you want to make sure this switch is in the other position, in the gray position or the white position, not the blue position, because we're going to use our legacy dashboards. Our legacy dashboards have this faint green dashboard color up here, icon. The new dashboards have a lovely blue. So if you want to look and see where these are legacy dashboards. There we go. Here's my new dashboards. And again, the parameters are done a little differently and stuff like that. So that's why we're going to use these legacy dashboards for right now. Okay. Can we create our own lookup? You bet it, John. We're going to do that here in just a few minutes. So good question. So yeah, what do you say we talk about lab number 5? Now I've got to warn you, lab number 5 is a boatload of code, okay? Detecting a land speed violation. There is a lot of things going on. Now, I'm also going to warn you that there's going to be a test question that you're going to have that says, put the following steps in order. And so this query flow chart are the steps, and you'll have to put them in order. Now, you can take one of two approaches to this question. Approach number 1, you go into this lab, you take a look at it, you find this information, you drag and drop the boxes, answer the question correctly, good to go. Second approach is, this is too complicated, I don't want to worry about this question, I'll take the point hit, and I'll still pass the exam. So it's entirely up to you which approach you decide to take, okay? But here is the answer to that question. When it asks you to, for a land speed violation, put the following steps in order. This is where you find that, okay? Now, this is really a long and involved query. It really is. So I'm going to take the entire query. I'm going to scroll down here toward the bottom. At step 11, your final query should look like this. And I'm going to copy this and I'm going to comment out some code and I'm going to walk you through it, because it is really the mother of all code examples, okay? So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my Sumo logic environment, grab a new log search. I'm going to paste this in. Set this for 24 hours here, so it's like everybody else. And I'm going to start walking you through this. By the way, we only have one parameter here, that's actor, okay? But let me go up here and let me start commenting things out. So earlier, I showed you the ability of how to comment out a bunch of lines. So right here in my case, and by the way, I suggest you copy and paste this in, right, yourself, and just let it go. Don't comment anything out like I'm about to do. Just let it go. It's a complete query, it'll work. But I'm going to right here, right now, I'm going to take this line right here where it says to int. And again, I'm going to hold down my option key or my alt key. And I'm going to drag a line all the way down. Oops, hold on a second, that didn't take. And I'm going to comment out all these lines. Okay. All right. And I'm going to run this because I want you to know what's going on here first. Okay. So here we are grabbing our data from CloudTrail. And the only field we're grabbing are our username, our source IP. That's it. Username and source IP. It's all I care about. Now, I'm going to put a filter in here so I can filter based on who my actor is, right? My user matches my actor parameter. Then I'm also going to look at the IP address, and I only want to make sure I'm looking at public IP addresses. I'm sure many of you are aware that there are some IP addresses like 192.168, which are not public, they're private. So I only want to see public IP addresses. Then where this minimum message time is as log time, I'm looking at my first instance by user by IP address. So I'm looking at the first instance of when a user logged in. I'm going to log that as my login time based on my user, based on my IP address. Then here I'm going to sort by my user, and this plus login time means I'm going to sort by login time ascending. It's another way of doing this. I could have said login time space ASC. but plus login time means I'm sorting it ascending order. Now, we have a function in our product called IPv6 to number. It will convert an IP address into a number. We'll call it IP decimal. Remember, I'm looking at the first entry of a user, the first time they've logged in. I'm looking at their IP, I'm looking at their login time. Now, what backshift does is it goes to the next entry. And I'm going to look for an IP decimal by that user. And I'm going to look at their login time, and I'm going to call that previous login. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at keeping track of all the IP addresses that you've logged in from and all the login times that you've logged in from. And then when I get to the end of this, where it's null, I want to filter that out. Okay, I don't want any nulls. So I'm keeping track of all of a user's activity here based on my user. Now, this next section is just math to convert a number, that IP decimal number, back to an set of octets. So this is how we convert an IP address number, numeric value, to a octet, series of octets. And that's all this is doing. This is converting my various previous IP as a IP address. And then here, I'm going to do a lookup. So I'm going to look up, again, new star based on your current IP. I'm going to look up your latitude, and I'm going to call that lat1. I'm going to look up your longitude. I'm going to call that long1. And I'm also going to get your country name. I'm going to call that country name 1. I'm also going to go to the previous IP that you had, and I'm going to look that up as well. I'm going to call that lat2, long2. Now, why am I doing that? Because ultimately, I'm going to use a function called haversign. The haversign function in our product takes a latitude and longitude and another latitude and longitude and figures the distance in kilometers between those two distances. So what this application or what this query is doing is it's looking up and getting your latitude for one latitude, another longitude, another longitude. And then we are going to do the haversign formula. Now, again, I want to filter in case one of the latitudes and one of the longitudes is null. So I'm going to get rid of that. That's what those where clauses are. And then, as I said, I want to calculate the distance. And the nice thing about it is the result of the Haversine formula gives us the distance in kilometers. So we're going to call this distance KMS. All right. Now, we now know the distance between the user's logins. Now we want to be able to compare the time of when they logged in. How long was it between those times? So we're going to take their current login time minus their previous login time, going to divide it by 3,600,000, which is going to convert it to hours, right? The login times are in seconds or whatever. This is going to convert it to hours. Then I'm going to take that distance in kilometers, divide it by the difference between login times, and that's going to give me an apparent velocity. Apparent velocity in kph. Now I'm going to filter out where the apparent velocity is greater than 0. If you logged in from your home and you logged in later from your home, it's the same location. There's no apparent velocity. Let's get rid of that. Right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where you've logged in from a different location. Then what I'm going to do, and here's how you set up a constant. So somebody asked about a constant. I set the value of 500 and I'm going to call it suspicious speed. That sets up a constant. Now I can test to see, I'm going to compare your velocity against suspicious speed. If it's greater than suspicious speed, I want to see that information. If it's less than suspicious speed, I don't care about it. Okay, let me run this so you can see what we've got down here just to kind of catch us up. because waiting for my results. I should have probably made this something less than 24 hours. Because it's going to take a while for the query to run. So let's just make it 3 hours, just for right now. Patience is not one of my big virtues here. Yeah. Yes, I want to cancel the search. Thank you. All right. So let's make this 15 minutes. What the heck? Let's make it easy on ourselves. All right. So down below here in just a few minutes, I'll get some results. And I'll see things like apparent velocity. I'll see things like the IP addresses and stuff that have been calculated. All kinds of fun stuff here. So just bear with me. Yeah, sometimes that happens. But again, I'll see where they've logged in from, the country 1, country 2, all the various values. So I broke Sumo, yeah. Story of my life. No, this requires a little bit of patience. Denial service. I don't think so. All right, here we go. So as you can see, I'm seeing my IP, I'm seeing my login time. There's my IP decimal. This is my previous previous login time. If I scroll down here a little bit farther, bear with me a moment. I kind of get things out of my way. I can see my various octets, my previous IP, my current country name, my previous country name, my latitudes, my longitudes, my distance in kilometer. I got a whole bunch of stuff that I've been accumulating here as I go through this, right? That I'm displaying. So ultimately what I want to kind of do is clean this up and make it more readable. And so what I'm going to do here, my query is, I'm going to concatenate, just to make it easy, my IP and my previous IP. And, again, I'm going to call that IP addresses. And then I'm going to say, look, if the two country names are the same, I'm going to display a country name once. If they're not the same, I want to concatenate country name 1 and country name 2 separated by a comma and call it countries. Then I'm going to use the fields command to display only the fields that I want. So here I'm saying I want to see fields user, IP address, countries, distance in kilometers, login time, delta, and apparent velocity. Okay. So now when I run this, yeah, things are running a little slow today. Now, when I look down below, as soon as this thing gets results, I should only see some of those values. It's not quite as busy down here. We kind of cleaned it up a little bit. So it's almost done. Okay, good. So down here, oh, still not seeing results yet. Well, in just a minute. There we go. So now I'm seeing the IP addresses that they logged in from, who the user was, the countries. And in the case of, well, there's only one country, we only filter and show you one country, the distance in kilometer, the login distance, difference time, and then the apparent velocity. Now, I'm going to take this distance in kilometers divided by my login time to figure out my velocity, which means I'm going to have a divide by 0 situation here. So what I want to do is I want to filter where I don't have a username. And where I've got that divide by 0, or where I've got an apparent velocity of equal affinity, I want to get rid of that. And then I want to sort by my apparent velocity to see probably the highest threat or the highest concern here. And that's basically what this query does. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this query and we're going to add it to our dashboard. And we're going to call it land speed violation. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and click here while I'm waiting, say add to dashboard. There you go, add to dashboard. Again, land speed violations, I don't care if it's plural or not. SOC underscore JWM underscore today's date. Add. And now this is going to add this to, again, my dashboard. And as we talked about before, I could go in and change my parameter, and that will automatically filter these panels. Yep. Anthony, you asked about, can I talk about moving panels and stuff around, panel placement, how to move it between single logical screens? I'm not sure what you mean by single logical screens.
If you wanted to display the land speed violations so that it was, say, dragged down another couple of inches, is that possible?
Yep. So I could go down here, I could grab this and I can move it wherever I want to. I could drag it down. I could also make it bigger. Now, the problem is I've got other things next to it. So I've got to move those things around a little bit.
That's what I mean. Can you like just demonstrate how you would move land speed down below everything else?
Sure, hang on a second. So let me take land speed here and move it down below. And so there's land speed. And again, I can move it over here to the left, or I can make it, so it's full width across. However you want to. Is that what we're looking for, sir? No problem.
Yeah. For some reason, when I was dragging it, it would just snap back to where it was.
Yep. But if you don't move it far enough, it'll snap back. By the way, make sure that you're also in this editing mode. So if you click out of done editing, now I can't edit it. Now I can't drag it. But if you click on the pencil, you are now in editing mode and you can move things around.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. All right. So that is that lab. And the good news is we're almost done. We got a few more labs to talk about. Just humor me for a second. So in lab 6, here's where we want to create that lookup. So we're going to create a lookup table. We're going to show you how to create that lookup table so that you can see what's going on. So I'm going to simply take this code. Humor me. I'm going to take this code. I'm going to copy this code in lab 6. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to create a new query, new log search query. I'm going to paste that code in. And let me comment out some things, right? First of all, I assume that you all recognize the first line. We're going to grab data off our CloudTrail data. Specifically, we're going to extract the actor from our CloudTrail data, the username, if you will. And then we're going to count by actor. So that's all pretty straightforward, right? Here's my results. Here's a list of my actors. Here's my count. Now, I can use the fields command to change the order of these things or to remove something. So here, I'm going to use the fields command and I'm going to do a minus sign on underscore count, which is going to remove it. So all I'm going to have out of here is a list of my users. I'm going to have a field called actor and a bunch of users. Now what I want to do is I want to save this. I don't want to display it. I want to save it someplace as a lookup. So here I've got to do a little modification, and you should do a little modification. So I'm going to put it in my shared directory, and I am going to call it with my initials. And again, I'm going to use today's date. So I'm going to make sure it has a unique name. So I'm going to save this lookup, the results of this query, shared / whatever I want to call it. So it's going to be my initials 0207 underscore AWS underscore actor underscore list. When I go to run this, it gives me this message. It says, oh, You're trying to save the results of this. You're not trying to display it, it's save it. And I'm going to say, yes, that's correct. I want it to run. So when I click run, it's going to run it. It's going to show me the list, but more importantly, it's going to save that list. So now what I can do is take this saved results. I'm going to swipe over it and copy its location. I'm going to go back to any one of my existing queries where I have actor in there. Actually, I should grab this one. Hang on a second. Boy, things are really running slow today. Okay, where I have actor, I can go into change and manage my parameter settings. And I want to set the values for this. And the format that I'm going to use again is going to be a lookup. And the lookup, the file that I'm going to use, this is where I'm going to paste that information in. Or if I wanted to, I could, type in shared / JWM, and you can see I have a few of these, okay, from previous classes. Now, it's going to look at that file and find any fields that are there. The only field that's there is actor, and I want actor to display. So I pick the field that I want. I now click save. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if I get rid of this star, now I get a pick list of my actors, and I can now filter based on that actor. Now, going back to somebody's question, let me grab Goshik. I know Goshik's got data here. Obviously, I made a change to this query and that sort of thing, so I need to send this to my dashboard again. So again, I want to update my dashboard with this, so it takes that parameter and those parameter settings and puts it in there. Or I could also go into my filter here, into my actor setting here. Oh, actually, never mind. No, actually, I've got to do it through the query. Yep. In the new dashboards, I can do it in the interface, but here I've got to do it through the query. All right. So that's that lab. And again, you're simply creating your lookup table. That's what that's all about. And you're saving it. So that's how you create a lookup table. We did that earlier with event type behind the scenes. Okay. Now, this next topic is going to be just an informational thing. One of the goals that we had when we created this set of labs is we wanted you to have a takeaway. We wanted you to be able to take, if you're running CloudTrail, we wanted you to take this lab and be able to export it out, this dashboard, and import it into your environment. That was our goal. So you can, in Lab 7, actually export this, and I'll show you how that works. I don't want you to do it. And again, I'm not sure how many of you have CloudTrail, and that'll be an interesting conversation. But we can find our dashboard here in our private personal folder here, right? So SOC JWM 0217, there it is. And if I click on this, you'll see I have the option to export this. I'm going to click export. There is all of the code associated with this. This is what makes this dashboard work. And you'll notice it's all in JSON. So I'm going to click download, and it's going to sit there and download this JSON file for me. I'll open it up in my File Explorer, my Finder, or whatever. I'm in Mac. And then I can open this up in a good text editor, right? So I'll grab Visual Studio Code, an app as a text editor. And here's the reason I'm doing that. I'm doing that. Come on in, Max. I'm doing this because in my query string of all my panels, I have, it says underscore source category equals lab/AWS/CloudTrail. Now, that's what we called our CloudTrail log source. You may have called it something else. You may have called it CloudTrail. You may have called it AWS. You may have called it whatever. And so you've got to do a search and replace where it says source category equals lab/AWS/CloudTrail and rename it to what your name is. And then you're going to save that. And then once you save that, you will be able to go into your Sumo Logic environment, and in your Sumo Logic environment, in your personal folder, under the More Action button, you'll have the option to import. And if you take all that lovely code and you copy it and you paste it right here, you'll be able to import that code right in. Give it a name and import it right in. So again, here's my, excuse me, here's my code. Again, I can do a Command A to select everything, Command C to copy. Then I can go here and I can paste it all in, and voila, you've now imported this content. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Matt, understand that. It didn't realize you made a change. So I'll deal with that offline if you don't mind. Okay. So that is how you and I can import and add and all that fun stuff. Okay. If you're not running CloudTrail, this dashboard's not going to do you any good. Now, one last little exercise here I want to talk about, which is really an important exercise. Lab 8, right? Using threat intel wisely to avoid costly data breaches. Again, you have, through us at Sumo Logic, you have the ability to look up information through CrowdStrike, okay? So if I look at this threat intel link up here and I open it up in a new tab, you will see that it's going to give us our threat intel frequently asked questions. So you can, through Sumo Logic and through our queries, you can send information to CrowdStrike asking them based on an IP address or a URL, an event name or whatever, you can ask them if that information is malicious or not, and who the actors might be, whether the actors are nation state actors or they're non-nation state actors, and what the malicious confidence is. So here in this lab 8, the real line of code that you're probably going to care about, let me go down here to the code. Here in the code, this is where we are looking up the threat. So we're passing in the IP address. We're going to call that threat. We're sending to this URL, which is CrowdStrike, and we're asking CrowdStrike to tell us the type, the actor, the raw information about this, the threat level, but we're going to call threat level malicious confidence. And then we can, filter and parse and all that good stuff and display that. That's what this query is doing. Now, not only are we looking at our CrowdStrike logs, that star up there at the first thing off of item 8 here, this star, that means we're looking at everything. So I'm looking at all my logs. So basically, I'm going to take this query, I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to go ahead and run it. And it's looking through all of our logs, parsing out the IP address based on a regular expression. And it's sending it to, it's basically breaking up by my time slices here, counting by my time slices. It's showing me, again, my count, and I'm also using the outlier function here to see where I might have known threats. So here I can see, what issues and stuff I have based on traffic volume. Now, truth be told, maybe what I want to do is comment out some of these lines. So let me go up here. Again, comment out a series of lines. Run this again so that I can see the information coming from CrowdStrike. Let me close this up. So again, here I have an IP address. There's no malicious confidence associated with it. Life is good. Do I have anything? I can obviously filter and say where malicious confidence is not equal to null. So I can get the information a little quicker here. But I'm looking to see if I have any threats. Oops, there's one. Low, there's a low threat right there. So again, kind of a handy utility. And again, because we have a relationship with CrowdStrike, you can write queries into our product that you can query against CrowdStrike. And that's my message to you. What questions have you before I get you ready for the exam? Any questions? All right, let's get ready for the exam. So let's see if someone puts in chat. Okay. Can you go over that pick list part? Sure, I can. Matt, so the pick list part was in the previous lab. So that was lab 7, I believe. Go to the previous lab. Actually, I'm sorry, it was under exporting. By the way, in lab 7 here, where we export and import, we also gave you the queries to create these lookup tables. So these pick lists, right? We want to create a pick list that shows us the event types and the actors. And that's basically what this does. That's what these queries do. One's for my actor, one's for my event type. So you would run these queries would save out a file in Sumo Logic, and then you could reference that. So the query is going to get you your results, and then you are going to take those results and you are going to go into another existing query, and you're going to modify the parameter settings so that it uses the result of that lookup. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm doing actor here. So shared / JWM / actor list here. There you go. By the way, I would also schedule this query to run periodically so it refreshes the values. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, Matt. Andrew asked a question here. Data doesn't count against ingestion when using pre-aggregated scheduled views. That's true. Although the pre-aggregated scheduled views are part of your ingestion, but the answer to the question is true. And actually, Andrea, I'm going to get to that question here in just a second. So good question. So good stuff. When you run against a scheduled view, and actually that's where Andrea is coming from. One thing that we do in this last lab 8, and I don't really point it out, and there's a test question or 2 on it, so I apologize. Give me a second. We talk about using scheduled views. And the nice thing about using scheduled views for us, these scheduled views, is that they run automatically and update in the background. So if you use a scheduled view, it automatically updates and runs in the background. You don't have to worry about it. And you'll find there's a 4-part question on scheduled views in the exam. And hopefully I'll look for it and I'll wise you up as far as what the right answer is. So. But any other questions before I get into the exam and go through that? Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right. So to get into the exam, I need you to sign out of your training account. So here in training, again, you want to open the navigation panel. Down here where it says training plus analyst with your number, you want to click on that and you want to sign out. And then what I want you to do is I want you to sign into your Sumo Logic environment from your company with your name so that you get credit for the exam, right? So I want you to log into Sumo Logic, your company's Sumo Logic environment with your name. So down here in the corner, it has your name, right? That's what I want you to do. I'm going to close up all these tabs. By the way, if you got a bunch of tabs open, you can click on any one of the tabs, the 3 vertical dots, and you can choose to close all tabs. Cleans it up nicely. Now, for those of you with us yesterday and the day before, you know that to get to the certification exams, you click on the house, you click under certification here, you click on get certified, but you're doing it from your company's environment. And then here under get certified is where we're going to find the exam. Before I go there though, I want to show you something. Up here in the corner, in the upper right-hand corner, is your profile. So if you've taken exams with us before, this is where you keep track of those exams. And you can see your certificates, you can add them to your LinkedIn profile, all that cool stuff. Okay. Just want you to be aware. If I go all the way down to the bottom here, I can click done and be done with it. Now, as far as getting the exam, under get certified here in our learning management system, if you click on that, you should find in here the Cloud Security Monitoring and Analytics exam. This one, not Cloud Sim, but this one. Cloud Security Monitoring and Analytics. And this happens to be in English. So we click on this exam, there should be a register button up here. You click on that register button and boom, you're registered. Then it says, before you start, you'll start there. It says, as you know, most of our exams have 30 questions. This one only has 22 questions. and you got 60 minutes to complete it. And the pass score is lower. This is a new exam. We've rewritten, overhauled this course. So the exam is new, so we made the score a little lower to be fair. This is an open book exam, open notes, open slides. You can ask me or Odell any questions. We will gladly try to help you. Now, when I'm ready to take the exam, I can click next, and it's going to take me into this exam where I can start the assessment, or I can start scrolling down. Here is my counter for my 60 minutes. And you'll notice when I start seeing questions, lo and behold, my counter stops or starts. Now, I want to find that question that was asked about here. So just humor me for a moment. By the way, here's that one about, here are the steps to create the land speed query. Organize them in the correct order. Oh boy, isn't that fun? Get to put those in the right order. Let me just bear with me a second, folks. Here we go. So what are the advantages of using the scheduled view and checking all incoming IP addresses for malicious intent? Okay. Scheduled views take advantage of continuous query. That statement is true. Okay. Pre-aggregated scheduled views are cost effective. That is also true. Scheduled views provide a faster response time. That is also true. The last one here says that scheduled views need to re-ingest the data. That is false. It does not re-ingest the data. It only re-ingests the new data. So that one's the false one. Okay. So there's that question. And then, of course, if I go through and grab another one here, when parsing logs, the option allows you to do additional parsing on an already parsed field. That's the parse field command. The parse field command. So I'm going to answer those two questions if you don't mind. I just want you guys to watch here for a second. I don't want you to click next. But here I can now see what questions I got right, what questions I got wrong. All right. And then most importantly, when you're done with this exam and you've passed it, you've cut over a 70, you've passed it, don't forget to click submit so it adds it to that profile. That's why I showed you that profile earlier. Okay. Make sure you click that submit button so it stores it in your profile. Are there any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions at all? Turn my camera back on. Again, we'll be here. Odell and I will be here as long as it takes you to do the exam. You've got 60 minutes once you start it. Otherwise, if you get any questions, let us know. Otherwise, want to thank you for spending the last couple of hours with us. Hope you learned a lot. We hope to see you in the class again real soon. Thanks again. I'm going to stop the recording.